What's growing on, gardeners? It's Tuesday, April 30th, and things are starting to heat up here on the southeastern coast of North Carolina, and everyone is in the mood to plant out their garden. But I'm here to give you the real truth. May is one of the worst months for starting seed in the entire year. In fact, I plant almost nothing in May. And on today's video, I'm going to explain to you all exactly why, so you don't make any tragic mistakes.
If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell to receive new video notifications, and check out our Amazon store and Spreadshop links in the video description for everything I use in my garden and awesome custom designed apparel and other gear. Your support is greatly appreciated.
2 years ago, I began a monthly series where at the start of each new month, I shared a list of veggies you can plant right now out in your garden. I started this series specifically in the fall months because gardening interest drops off a cliff. Most people don't garden in the fall and winter, so I wanted to make as many people aware as possible that, hey, you can still plant things right now in most climates and have a little garden growing on in the winter, especially if you build yourself little hoop house covers, which really helps keep those winter blues away. Since I started that series 2 years ago, these types of videos have exploded on YouTube. Now everybody makes them, sometimes right down to my original thumbnail, on a rotating monthly basis. Now, I actually think this is really good in fall and winter to help maintain awareness and keep the interest in gardening alive and come up with new ideas on what can grow and survive the winter. The more information out there, the better. But this time of year, I think pushing out that type of content with long lists of stuff that can be grown right now, just because it's a new month and that's what we do on YouTube now, actually does more harm than good. In fact, I think this time of year is the worst time to rattle off lists of what to plant. Let me explain. First off, everybody already knows that May is gardening season. All you have to do is pull into a Lowe's or Home Depot parking lot. The lines in the garden center are out the door. So there's no need to raise awareness. We already know that stuff grows this time of year. But the bigger issue is that May is just not a good month for seed starting in general. It's a great time of the year for transplanting, but transplants take around 6 weeks to go out into your garden from the day you sow that seed. Any seed you sow into transplant trays in May won't go out into your garden until probably July. Trying to transplant things at absolute peak summer heat is usually not a good idea. May is mainly a shoulder month for seed starting, where it is too late to start transplants for spring, but it's too early to start transplants for fall. So if you want to get your garden going and you haven't started seeds yet, you pretty much have to go out and buy transplants from a nursery at this point to get them into the ground as soon as possible before it gets too hot, provided you're beyond your last frost date, of course. But what about direct sowing? Well, most of the crops that we direct sow are cool crops like root vegetables, alliums, and peas. Unless you live at a high latitude or at a higher elevation with a very short growing season, it's getting to be too late to sow a lot of these frost-tolerant crops. Most of those things should have been sown when the ground becomes workable, which for most people, generally speaking, is March-ish, give or take. Now, there are workarounds. You can sow these types of things under protection, like under shade cloth, or maybe you can find a shady spot in your yard to plant these things. Or maybe you live in a place with very mild summers where my statements don't apply. But again, I'm speaking broadly for the conditions most people deal with out in the open. There are always workarounds and exceptions if you're willing to change your garden's unique situation. Now, you may be thinking, come on, there's nothing I can plant in May? Well, no, of course not. There are things, but they tend to be more obscure and less popular. Most climates can, for example, plant corn and string beans directly into your garden right now. And in terms of starting transplants, one of the few things that you can start right now are transplants of winter squash, things like pumpkins, gourds, butternut, acorn, and other types of squash that store well over the winter. But these items are a little less common for backyard gardeners, particularly corn, because it's really hard to grow in small plots. But if you are looking for something to sow right now, they are some good options. Now, one of the few things that I legitimately do plant out into my garden in May are sweet potato slips, which is what you see right here. However, sweet potato slips take about 2 months to get going. I started these back in March, and they are finally about at the place where I can plant them out into my garden. If you haven't started your sweet potato slips, you pretty much have to order them online at this point. I'll place a link down in the video description. That is a video that that will teach you everything you need to know about growing sweet potato slips from sweet potatoes. Another exception would be anything you succession plant or plant out in waves in your garden. So, for example, cucumber plants have a very short lifespan, and it makes very little sense to try and keep old cucumber vines alive all summer. Instead, plant cucumbers out in waves, with new plants planted every 6 to 8 weeks, so you always have young, productive, healthy vines in your garden. Zucchini are another example. Instead of trying to keep your tired old zucchini plants alive from vine borers, squash bugs, and disease, plant them out in waves and let the old plants be sacrificial distraction crops to divert those pests away from the young, healthy plants. Flowers are another thing you may need to plant out in waves. I always want blooming sunflowers in my yard, but to do this I need staggered planting so there are always plants that are within the blooming phase. This is true for most flowering plants. They tend to flower when young, so if you want to always have flowers, you always need to have fresh plants. Or in my example, Peter Rabbit can come into your yard at night and eat all of your sunflower seedlings except for 3. So in my case, I guess I will be starting some sunflowers in May. And finally, I love growing fall tomatoes, but it is still a little too early for me to start seeds. I won't start my seeds until June because I can't transplant them until the worst heat of the summer passes. If you have a shorter growing season than I do and you like growing a dedicated fall tomato crop, it's possible that May is the best time to start your seeds, but honestly, if your growing season length is that much shorter than mine, chances are you can just keep your indeterminate tomatoes alive until frost and you don't need a dedicated fall crop of tomatoes. So if you're not starting seeds, what should you actually be doing in May? Well, you should largely be focusing on getting your garden off on the right foot. Everything should be planted out for the most part, and now you need to focus on keeping the plants well fertilized, well irrigated, well mulched, and check on them daily to ensure that there are no issues with pests and disease. This could involve preventative fungicide sprays. It could involve occasional treatment and use of natural or organic pesticides if the situation warrants it. I will place a link down in the video description to my pest and disease control playlist full of videos that can help you manage common problems in your garden as safely and naturally as possible. You should largely be taking a break from seed starting, except for the less common exceptions that I laid out in this video if the situation is appropriate for you. That being said, the biggest tip I can give you this time of year is to simply take a walk around your garden every single morning and every single evening. Take a quick stroll before you leave for work and when you get home from work. It's one of the best things that you can do because it will help you observe any issues that seem out of place. Look for the first signs of disease or holes in your plants from insects before it becomes a problem. Look to see if any plants have blown over from the wind. Look for animal tracks. Just spend 2 to 3 minutes every morning and every evening and inspect your garden, and that can help you spot problems before they get out of control. So take it from me, as one of the originators, or at least early adopters, of the what can I plant right now this month in my garden YouTube format, I feel like things are starting to get a little bit out of hand, and we're all planting crazy instead of worrying about what we're actually managing in our garden. So I just wanted to reel things back in a little bit and take a step back, because I ultimately want everybody to be as successful as a gardener as possible, but a man has to know their limitations, as Clint Eastwood once said, right? So if I'm constantly in the stage of planning and planting, and I'm never actually taking the time to take care of the plants that I've already planted, I'm going to not have great harvests, and I'm going to get beaten down and defeated because I'm in over my head. So I just want everybody to take a step back, assess their situation, and find out, am I already up to my neck in things? Do I already have too much to do? If that is you, now is the time of year to stop planting and focus on what you actually have and work on ideal management of the crop so you're successful, and that can later spur you on and motivate you to do more. Now, that being said, if you have your garden planted and you love it and you have more capacity and more time, then by all means, please plant more. Look up as many videos as to what you can plant right now as possible. I just want to put things in perspective and, like I said, reel it back in a little bit. And at this time of year, once we have our core things that we have the time to manage planted out, now is the time that we actually want to take care of them and not so much start sowing seeds unless, like I said, we have the capacity to do more. So everybody, I sure hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and please ring that notification bell so you're notified when I release more videos like these. If you're curious about any of the products that I use in real life in my garden, they are all linked in my Amazon storefront down in the video description. So expand the video description, click on the Amazon link, and you'll see everything I use in real life. And while you're down there, please check out my spread shop for custom merch if you want to support the channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see all of you again on the next video.
All right, let's get our breakfast together for Dale. Okay, and there is no Dale in sight. Oh, there he is. There he is. He's waiting. Wait. Hold on, Dale. You are outside in the morning, so we got to get all that dirt off your paw. I know it's not fair, but your paws are all soaking wet and muddy. Oh boy. Oh, it's hard for him to wait. Wait, we got to get your back paw, buddy. Okay, there's the back paw. Let's get this paw. Okay, buddy. All right. Oh, somebody's excited. Are you ready? And 3, 2, 1, go, Dale! And he made it. Dale got to his breakfast. I know it's just boring dry food today with some freeze-dried liver. We ran out of Dale's fresh food, but that's okay. We're going grocery shopping tomorrow, and we'll get Dale a nice big package of meat.